Exposed. Written by Suzana Thompson. Narrated by Lauren Sweet. Chapter 13. My life still felt like a whirlwind, though. I had so much going on now that I had forgotten about Josh until I saw him in class. The heated look he gave me made me remember our kisses with a jolt. How could I forget about our wild interlude in the bathroom? It had been at the forefront of my mind after it happened, and it was supposed to replace all thoughts of Mason. Yet here I was obsessing over him again. He'd managed to do something so unexpected that it distracted me from what I had done with Josh. My kisses with him were suddenly not much of anything in comparison to Mason asking me to be his girlfriend. He had changed tactics on me again by asking instead of demanding, and that had made a huge difference to me. The impact on me was even stronger than kissing him had been, and I didn't know how Josh could make me react to him that way and make me forget about Mason. I seemed to be even more susceptible to Mason's romantic gestures than I was to the physical attraction I felt for him. I could only hope that Josh would do something more romantic and become the only guy on my mind. Getting some distance from Mason should also help me clear my head. I was surprised that he had volunteered to leave me alone for a while and give me some space. It wasn't like him to be so thoughtful and considerate, and it made me wonder what was going on in his mind. I couldn't see how this could be a trick, though, unless he was going to use this as an opportunity to cheat on me. That thought slithered its way through my mind and left me in an unpleasant state of suspicion. I started obsessing about which girl he would hook up with. That led to me going to sit with him at lunch so that I could spy on him. He was surprised to see me approach his table, but quickly asked the girl sitting next to him to move so that I could have her seat. She obliged without protest, but my scrutiny narrowed in on her. I had been introduced to her the previous day, but had forgotten her name. Thanks, Mason supplied her name just as I knew he would.
Madison.
Madison, I repeated, taking in her long brunette hair and sultry dark eyes. She appraised me coolly as she took a seat across the table from me. Her dislike of me wasn't blatant, but nothing about her was. She was more understated in how she dressed than most of the other popular girls who showed off their figures to their best advantage. That was why she had slipped under my radar at first glance, but I saw that she was very pretty upon closer inspection. The girl was a stealthy threat, and I knew that Mason was discerning enough to notice her lithe, graceful beauty. She actually looked like someone who would fit right into his former wealthy neighborhood. Even her name sounded upper class, and it fit so well with Mason. Madison and Mason. She was the kind of girl he could bring home to meet his mother, the kind of girl he could marry. Madison Sumner. I tested the name out in my mind. Suddenly, I felt like the hookup, and Madison seemed like the girlfriend. All Mason ever wanted to do was see me naked. There had been the picture, and now there were the terms of the bet. He had made me clean his house in that skimpy maid uniform, which I couldn't imagine him doing to Madison. He would probably take her to fancy restaurants in a limo and—
Here,
Mason said, cutting into my thoughts.
I got it back for you.
He was pulling the smiley face balloon out from under the table, and he tied it to the handle of my backpack, which I had placed on the floor beside my chair. My level of happiness over him giving me back that balloon was out of proportion for such a simple gift. But it reaffirmed that I was his girlfriend. He was acknowledging that in front of everyone with a visual reminder, and my spirits soared. I beamed at him. Thank you. He responded with a dazzling smile.
You're welcome.
That is so cute, Erin exclaimed with her signature sunny enthusiasm. That girl was quickly endearing herself to me, and I smiled warmly at her. Mason drew my attention again as he set the 2 packs of crackers he had bought me on the table in front of me.
I see you only have water again. At least eat a few of these,
he urged. I had gotten only a bottle of water because I had been in a hurry to get to his table and observe him to see which girl he wanted to hook up with. I had been too riled up to feel hunger, but my appetite stirred at the sight of the crackers. They were a perfect snack for my nervous stomach, since my awareness of Madison had returned when Alicia made another comment about me being on a diet. I had looked in her direction, but caught Madison's gaze instead. She was seated right next to Alicia, who was still running her mouth, but neither Madison nor I were paying any attention to her. After a moment of studying me, Madison's gaze shifted to Mason as she appeared to lose interest in me. "That was so thoughtful of you, Mason," she praised him in her calm, cool tone. My attention snapped back to him as she spoke to him, and I watched him make eye contact with her as he responded.
"Well, I have to take care of my girl."
His cool tone matched hers, and they gave off the impression of being adults speaking about a child. My confidence plummeted, and the balloon now made me feel embarrassed. My childish delight over it was as immature as my little temper tantrum in the hallway earlier this morning. No wonder Mason could manipulate me so easily. In my agitation, I ripped open a pack of crackers and shoved one in my mouth before realizing how uncouth that looked. Madison would never stress eat like that in public, and I doubted she did it in private either, judging by her slim body. I chewed my mouthful awkwardly and took a sip of water after swallowing it down. Sitting up straighter in emulation of Madison, I delicately nibbled on another cracker. "Thank you for these, Mason," I said, affecting a cultured, cool tone. I saw him regarding me with amusement, but he replied with the same civil politeness.
"You're welcome, Ella."
"We don't want you to starve," Alicia said, apparently not caring at all about manners. She grabbed a hot dog out of the bun on her boyfriend's plate and flung it at me. "Here, put that in your mouth." She snickered as it hit me in the chest and landed on the table in front of me.
"Hey!"
her boyfriend protested. I looked down at the mustard on my shirt in dismay. Erin jumped up out of her seat and brought me some napkins to wipe it off.
"Alicia,"
Mason said, in the calmest voice I had ever heard him use.
"you don't sit here anymore."
He sounded so neutral and non-threatening that it took her a moment to comprehend that he was kicking her out. "What?" she asked, still not quite understanding. "Leave," Madison said, in that same unconcerned tone that Mason had. Alicia stared at her before her gaze swept around the silent table, looking for someone to help her. Nobody did, and they all averted their gazes from her. Even her boyfriend didn't say a word. "Seriously?" she demanded incredulously. "You were mean to Ella," Erin spoke up. "Are you kidding me?" Alicia raged. "You're going to take that slut's side over mine? She cut off abruptly as Mason shot to his feet, but Madison spoke coolly before he could react further. "People who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, Alicia. Slut-shaming is so hurtful. How would you feel if my brother called you a slut?" All the color drained from Alicia's face, and her gaze flew to her boyfriend's suddenly suspicious expression.
"What does that mean?"
he demanded.
"Did you fuck her brother?"
No, I don't know what she's talking about," she said unconvincingly. "She always had a crush on him," Madison commented, "even though he's such a player. I warned her, but she said she had to go for it before he left for college." "You are such a bitch," Alicia exclaimed. Again, people who live in glass houses shouldn't. "Shut up," Alicia yelled. "This is all because of Ryan, isn't it? Well, I can't help it if he likes girls with boobs instead of flat." Alicia's tirade came to an abrupt halt when her boyfriend scraped his chair back as he got up and stormed off. "Connor!" she called out in distress and ran after him. Mason relaxed and patted Erin on the back.
"Thanks for helping Ella,"
he told her before sitting back down. She turned from gaping at the couple who had just left the cafeteria and replied to him, "Yeah, of course." Glancing at my shirt, she shook her head. "That was crazy." She was probably referring more to the rest of the incident than Alicia throwing a hot dog at me. Mason spoke then and drew my attention.
"Thank you, Madison, for standing up for Ella."
"Yeah, thank you," I said. She barely glanced at me, and her eyes were on Mason as she responded. "Of course. We have to take care of your girl." I might have been paranoid, but that sounded ominous to me. I had just seen her take care of Alicia, and I doubted she had done it for me. While I had no sympathy for Alicia, Madison had obviously betrayed their supposed friendship by revealing that dirty secret in front of everyone. She was cold and calculating, and I didn't trust her. At least Alicia had been upfront about her dislike of me, and I knew what to expect from her. Madison was nearly impossible to read. I wasn't sure if she disliked me or simply dismissed me as being of no interest to her whatsoever.
"Man, I thought that was going to be more of a girl fight,"
Tyler complained.
"You should have fought back, Ella."
I shrugged like the incident hadn't bothered me. All she did was throw food at me. I guess I could have thrown my crackers at her, but I don't think it would have made much of an impact.
"No," he agreed. "You need whipped cream and bikinis."
I laughed, because by this time I'd come to the conclusion that Tyler was harmless. He was actually more ridiculous than sleazy with his sexual innuendos and comments. "Next time," I joked. He grinned.
"You're all right, Ella."
I didn't realize how pleased I was with his approval until I realized that I was grinning back at him. "So are you, Tyler." I felt an arm drape around my shoulders and looked over to see Mason scowling at Tyler. He felt my gaze and glanced at me, and I smiled at him as I relaxed in the comfort of his arm around me. His expression smoothed out, and a smile slowly formed on his lips.
"Bro, you are so whipped,"
Tyler exclaimed, in what sounded more like amazement than teasing. Mason glanced in his direction, but my focus was all on him. His skin seemed to be slightly flushed, and I had the thought that he might be embarrassed. My heart started an erratic beat at the possibility. Could it be true? Was Mason really into me? His gaze returned to me and took my breath away. It was too much, too overwhelming. Becoming incredibly flustered, I looked away from him and happened to catch Josh watching us suspiciously. Heat flooded my face as I felt like he had just discovered my secret crush on Mason. Telling myself that he couldn't possibly know just from looking at me, I nevertheless averted my gaze from his. That's when I saw Mason watching me, and my heart went into overdrive with panic. He doesn't know, I told myself, as I tried to quell my paranoia. He didn't know that I had kissed Josh. Nobody did, so there was no reason that he would. Yeah, the thought came, because you were so discreet kissing him in the bathroom at school. Anyone could have seen him come in there. But they hadn't, I assured myself. We had been alone in the restroom, and the hallways had been empty due to classes being in session. Our secret was safe, as long as I didn't give myself away. With a tremendous effort that strained my nerves to the max, I managed to sit there and produce a smile for Mason. His unnerving scrutiny continued for several more seconds before he smiled back at me. I didn't dare look at Josh again for the rest of lunch, and I was very glad when it was over. Mason, however, wasn't done with me.
"What's going on?"
He asked, as we walked out into the hallway. My heart leapt up into my throat in alarm, but I tried not to show my nervousness. Nothing. What?
You know what I'm talking about.
He insisted with a sideways glance at me.
What were you doing there at lunch?
I defended myself by turning it around on him. What were you doing? Were you making plans with Madison for this weekend? Did I interrupt something?
I knew you were jealous,
he declared with a smirk. I am not jealous, I huffed. In fact, I think she's perfect for you. Go ahead and be snobs together and look down on everyone else. Take her home to meet your mother. What do I care? I halted and turned to glare at him as he started laughing at me. I almost fell into him when someone knocked into me, and Mason laughed even harder before grabbing my hand to pull me aside out of the way of other students.
I'll cancel my exciting plans to be a snob with Madison,
he told me in amusement.
But only for you.
You don't have to do anything for me, I snapped. I told you I don't care what you do.
You do care,
he said, as his expression became heated. He stepped closer and lifted a strand of my hair to run through his fingers as he spoke.
I like that you got jealous, and that you don't want me to be with anyone else.
His intense gaze fixed on mine.
That's how I feel about you too, Ella. And I'm so glad that you said yes to being my girlfriend.
I opened my mouth to protest, but he spoke first.
I know I said I'll leave you alone for now, and I will. Let me just walk you to class.
I couldn't argue with that, so I allowed him to take my hand as we walked together to my classroom. It felt so nice, and it was the most natural thing in the world for me to give my boyfriend a brief kiss in parting. I didn't really realize what I had done until I pulled back with a soft smile and saw his intense expression.
Ella,
he said, in a voice that conveyed things I didn't dare hope for. His gaze held mine with intense emotion before he dipped his head and pressed his lips to mine in a brief but powerful kiss that left me staring after him in a daze as he decisively strode away.